Am I live? Yeah, I guess so. Okay, today I've been wanting to do some stuff. I did a bunch of paintings 2016, and I had an idea of a series called Things I Learned on the Internet. And some people would probably flip out because it's controversial, but I think if you understand where I'm coming from, I'm actually I'm seeking the truth, put it that way. Okay. So I created this one, and I'm gonna go and paint it some more. It actually looks pretty nice up close so far. Let me see if I can show you all the little crazy intricate patterns and stuff. Okay. And when I was creating this, I was not intentionally to make it. It was like semi-attractive, but being attractive was not the most important thing. Because what this is about one of my long-term held beliefs that most of modern art is bullshit. And once you understand, like I intuitively knew when I saw a lot of modern art that it was bullshit. There's no other way, like that's the best word I can have to describe it. Bullshit. Now, I mean, I can appreciate. I have been partially brainwashed, like most people, when you see like a Mark Rothko, when you big three pieces of color in this huge room. There's like a sense of awe around it. Partly because we've created a temple for this piece, right? That has an emotional attachment to you, because people have told us this is great art, but also too because some strong colors definitely affect us. Now, how did we get here? How did we get here to a point where one splash of color or dripping paints or smooshing shit is great art? Okay? Now, you have to be open-minded to this. Jackson Pollock is I'll use Jackson Pollock as my primary example. I knew the moment when I was like 15, I saw Jackson Pollock or I saw a reproduction of it, I thought, bullshit! Like in my head, this was alarm bells going off. And I was trying to think, how does this represent an evolution of art? Because I always think about there are masters who've mastered their craft, and the art is relevant to that time and place. So art is very much a zeitgeist, right? It's a representation of the world around them and the person themselves in that world. Do you know what I'm saying? But how do we get to modern art? Like for me, I stopped paying attention like around pop art. Pop art lost it for me. So Warhol and Basquiat, I think, is just garbage. It's just bleh. It's just mass reproduced. There's no talent there for me, and it's more like it's kind of like. It's like a generation. Like there's a son. I'll use a son and a father's example. The son, rebels against the father and becomes left wing, and then the next generation they're more right wing, or however you want to play a juxtaposition. There's usually with every art movement there's a reaction to the previous one, and it becomes more shocking. And I think we kind of lost our way, and it also then applies to what I want to do. Okay. And I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but I go with my gut instinct, and that's it. So I call this thing the birth of modern art. Okay, and it was meant to be painted. I was going to do it very Jackson Pollock and drippy, but if you look carefully, there's the word CIA. Now here's the cool story, is that modern art was largely a creation of the CIA. And it sounds like a bizarre, crazy concept. That doesn't make any sense. And the cool thing for me is that we have been brainwashed to look at certain pieces of artwork and think that that's great, and we're filled with these ideas from other people telling us what is valuable and great. And I come from a much more intuitive place, and I use my own judgment, internalized judgment, and I don't believe everything everybody says to me. And so, years ago when I discovered this, the people's first reaction is, oh, that's a conspiracy. It's crazy. Well, turns out, if you look at not too long ago, a whole bunch of articles came out just saying basically how Jackson. So this is Medium. Can you see the computer? how Jackson Pollock and the CIA teamed up to win the Cold War. How the CIA, this is Gizmondo, how the CIA spent secret millions turning modern art into Cold War arsenal. I mean, there's so many articles. There's New Yorker, BBC. You can even go into the Wikipedia and it tells you about, you know, the cultural freedom and organization to promote American culture and values backed by the CIA sponsored exhibitions of Pollock's work. Certain left-wing scholars, mostly prominently Eva Cockcroft, have argued that the U.S. government and wealthy elite embraced Pollock and abstract expressionism to place the United States in the forefront of global art and devalue social realism. Okay, so let me try to summarize what this is all about. Okay, during the Cold War, let me go back to my, there we go, so I can see where I'm. During the Cold War, propaganda was one of the most important tools, right? And the Cold War, and I'm not putting a value judgment, it's more like it's cool to discover how things came about and why we think the way that we do and how much we're affected by propaganda. And it's amazing because my background is in psychology and understanding social behavior and human behavior, and you know, it's very, very, very interesting, and it just happens to touch upon art. So the deal was simply like this. The West wanted to show dominance over Soviet culture because Soviet art was very static and stoic and representational. Like, it was very, very rigid, and there wasn't much. You weren't really allowed to vary from their particular the Russian style at the time. You know, during the Cold War. So what they did is it didn't necessarily originate the CIA, but the CIA implemented it. Was they wanted to win a battle of concept that the West was better, was more open, more creative, was better for new intellectual ideas and freedoms. And so the CIA basically infiltrated a number of, like, you know, very high-ranking. Just takes a few, you know, like art critics and patrons, and they poured millions of dollars into increasing the value and attention, and we're talking perceived value and also monetary value, because they would actually use the money for changing the value of the paintings, into making that this was like high art and became very valuable and spawned a whole movement. And so now I hope when you look at modern art and you question and you sit there going, you know, I don't get it. It was because of this. We have been brainwashed to think art, especially modern art, has this special value, but we just don't get it because we're not intellectual enough. We're not part of an art community that can understand it and interpret it. And also, too, do you ever get a sense when someone is full of shit, when they're trying to describe something? You know, I recommend going to YouTube and listening to people talk about modern art. And to me, there's a sense of lots of words, lots of like high-end words. And it sounds smart, but there's like a soul that's missing, a core that's missing. And that's what it is that what is intrinsic value? And I think today this is really important because I think there's going to be a renaissance, at least for me. For me, I have my own little renaissance of caring about art that is about something that's true and real, that represents, you know, society the way I see it, and also fights for something valuable, like what they try to do. And to me, that's natural. That's beauty. Okay, it could be the beauty of nature. It could be beauty of symbols, because it's easy for me to do horrific stuff. I could do Jenny Savelle stuff like that. I could do a bunch of beat up women that are beautiful, but it's like a death scene. You know, it would take, you know, and I probably would get a lot of attention for doing that, but I have to fight to my core to do something that would affect some, you know, not everybody, but some people on a true level, on an emotional level, where you know, maybe I think it's because of millions of years of evolution. You know, we've learned positive and negative experiences, and like probably seeing a sunset is probably a positive experience that we've evolutionarily brought into ourselves. So what I'm trying to say is with this painting, I went in and made a whole bunch of silly little, it's this. Well, I have a bunch of photographs. This is before I started doing live streaming, and I only had a crappy little iPhone taking pictures. So I have pictures of this, and it was easy. In fact, CIA used to be white, and it was just a bunch of patterns. So my intention with this one is, this is about the birth of. I call it the birth of modern art because it was the CIA. Okay. Their involvement. And I think that's kind of cool, to be honest. I think it's kind of cool that, a deep state actor got involved, and it was a psychological form of warfare, I guess, and it affected me directly. It affected me. And I didn't know why. I didn't know why I disliked modern art. But this helped me clarify. It was artificial. There wasn't something intrinsically good about drips on painting, maybe the overall effect is a nice pattern, but you know what? I could create a program that can create infinite number of patterns that would probably be interesting and print them out, and there you have it. So to me, art, at least with painting, needs to have some kind of relationship with a human being who perceives themselves and the world, and create something that touches you and you can relate to, and it doesn't have to be a deep message. For example, Monet's waterlilies, I think, are just beautiful. It's like, I would like to be here. I get a sense of calm, and I think that's nice, man. If I could do that, allow to touch people at a human level with an emotion, but it's also intellectual. Like, this is not just some random picture. I have a problem with a lot of art when I go to Instagram, and I see people just copying photographs. I would say I'm following only about 29 people right now on Instagram, and I only use Instagram right now just because there's some different art I get to see. And I'm kind of saddened because so much of it is just, you could just see the photograph. You can tell this photograph with the lighting, because usually the shadows are very artificial. And, I for sure have used photographs many times to incorporate. But my goal is always to try to base it out of like here and at a here. So anyhow, I'm going to go into this one today, and I just feel like adding some more bits and stuff. Now what's funny about this one, the irony is, I was actually criticizing, the Jackson Pollock randomness, but I was intentionally making as many interesting patterns as I can. So I think it looks nice, and I can't see anyone in the world ever wanting to buy this thing. So this is one of those tons of things that I've done where I just feel like I need to do it. I want to do it. This whole series I've got called things I learned on the internet. For example, I did the Pepe feels good man meme, and I did it kind of in a Van Gogh style, and I called it appropriation. Because I don't know if you've been following, there's this crazy, I should talk all about that another time, but there's this crazy kind of like evolution of meaning that this image has taken on. And my point of appropriation was, it was the original artist who created it had no intention of it to be taken in the directions it has. So I did Pepe. I also did one about Michael Richards, who it's called Kramer's Heart. I have it upstairs, and I'll probably continue more. And it was kind of a moment, I don't know if you remember that moment when Michael Richards, the comedian who does Kramer, was doing stand-up comedian, and he lost his mind. Like, something went wrong where he thought he was being funny, but he just kept on using the N-word, and, it was like a point of like, the cringe level inside me was so strong that I was thinking what was going on at that moment. So I actually had a poster of Kramer, from the Kramer poster. I painted over it, and I'll show you later, and I'll work on some more. So I have a series of these ideas of things I've learned on the internet, I call it, that talk about the zeitgeist of internet, culture. Because I live on the internet. I mean, I'm on Reddit all the time. I love reading conspiracy theories. I was disappointed that Alex Jones got booted out because I used to like to wash my dishes and listen to his ridiculous podcast. It was massively entertaining for me. And so, because I don't believe most things, but I like hearing different ideas and things that challenge you. Okay, so now I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to work on the birth of modern art. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to just maybe try printing it up with some more brushstrokes. So now that I've explained it, I wonder if the CIA is going to contact me and then hire me and pay me millions of dollars. Yeah, that's it. To create a cultural revolutionary art. I just don't know who it is. Who's it against? The Chinese? Who's the deep state actors? Who are they? Who's the enemy? I don't know. Okay, so I am gonna go and play with this some more. Coffee number 3. So I'm feeling good. So last time I touched this was probably 2016. So I am now really, I've been wanting, actually, part of the reason why I'm doing this, one is I've been wanting to sort of talk about it for a while and like throw down that crazy truth about modern art. And I think it might clarify something for people. Some people might, next time they go to an art gallery and they see a Mark Rothko, they might have a new perspective on it. And here's the other big truth about most art, expensive art. It's money laundering. It's money laundering. When you have paintings that sell for hundreds of millions of dollars, or maybe even tens of millions of dollars, at that level, art is so subjective. Like, let's say this painting becomes worth $50 million. It's because it's a way to store money without paying taxes. There is, of course, without a question, there are people who very much enjoy it. And regardless if they've been brainwashed to think that modern art is something special or it means something, of course there's still that. But, really at the high-end stuff, it's about money laundering. So maybe that should be my goal. My goal should be to try to create artwork that can be laundered for cash. What a great idea. I think Banksy stuff became popular because of a bit of the backlash against art. It was political statements without like who knows? Who knows if the Banksy, yeah, it's possible. The Banksy stuff, because if you look at it, this is not that great. I mean, there's some cool little cute sketches and stuff, but the perceived value of Banksy is so high. It should make you wonder why. Why? What is so intrinsically impressive about it? I mean, I think parts of it was shocking that someone was doing something that was very, original, and there was something. I think I know what it is. For a long time, I grew up with graffiti culture. Not saying that I was into it. I always thought it was mostly squibbles, and once in a while I'll see some cool stuff, but it always felt formulaic. Like the letters and everything. There's nothing that was like really blowing my mind. And I have seen some cool murals painted in downtown Toronto in some alleyways. But I think what Banksy came across was more average people seeing something that graffiti was a counterculture, right? Was a underground movement, was somehow outside of what we're told is the normal way to be, and therefore it has that edginess to it, and it made it unique. It's not like the artwork was that great, right? The drawings were not fucking that good, and so I think that's what it came about. So Banksy was for a while was the zeitgeist, and maybe we'll find out some years that some deep state, maybe it was the English deep state, because I think wasn't a lot of Banksy stuff in the UK. I think I'm sorry if I'm ignorant. So maybe it was something about the UK wanting to position themselves as on the leading edge of art. So what I'm going to go do now is I am going to go spend some time trying to make these marks art marks, unique and beautiful and interesting to look at. To sort of celebrate this idea that we've been brainwashed. And oh yeah, so here's the other irony. I recognize that I've been brainwashed to think that. So that was my coffee. Now I'm on a green tea. I think I've been brainwashed to think that certain art marks are beautiful. For example, some of Van Gogh's lines, some of Auguste Rodin's mixing of colors together, sort of with the brushy style that he's done. Or who's the other guy that I really respect? What's that figure? Freud's grandson, Lucien Freud, who does figure painters, who paints like, it's neat the way he, every brushstroke is masterful. He's a master artist. There's very few people who I would consider masterful. And one little brushstroke became the shape at the same time, the right hue and also sense of light. And I think that was masterful. That's what Van Gogh had. Some of Tom Thompson's, a lot of Lucien Freud's. Each stroke represented many things at once, and it just works well. Okay, so I'm going to be quiet now, and I'm just going to just literally go in here. And I'm doing this for the person who may actually come and look at this. And you're going to look at this carefully, and you're going to go, wow, some madman went in here and meticulously put tiny, tiny dots, tiny little bits of color, tiny little things for you to discover. So this is for someone I'm doing this for someone to discover who is like me. When I was a kid, when I was young, I was definitely advanced when it came to art. Far, far beyond people, I don't care. One experience I had that I remember clearly is I went to the Art Gallery of Ontario with my school trip. And I walked in, and Van Gogh's irises were there. And it was a multi-hour trip where they all went on. I snuck out and stayed behind, and I just sat the entire trip and just looked as close as I could get to Van Gogh's irises. And I could just feel, I totally see. I see where he went back and went back this way. I see why he did it. And I felt a total connection to, it was like I was there with him, and I felt equal. That's how cocky I was. I felt like, yeah, I get it. And I wasn't trying to be like, and this is all in my head. So it wasn't like I was being cocky to somebody else. It was more like, wow, this is something I get. I don't like watching sports. I don't understand fucking, baseball and football. Scoring throws me off. I can't follow. I used to play football, and I was like either a linebacker or on the line, and they'd say hut, and I'd be like lost. I'd be like, just tell me who I'm supposed to hit. Like, that's how it was. So I'm not trying to say that I'm some sort of genius overall, but because I am a complete moron when it comes to certain things. But one thing I got was Van Gogh as one of the few people. I got him. I got it. When I was young too. And here, let me quickly show you something. This is, I think, my second acrylic painting. And I did it just after, I gotta find the age. I'm gonna say I was 12 or 13 maybe. But from memory, I thought of Van Gogh's irises. I remember the way they sort of curved to the left and the flowers went to the right. And also thinking, Like this was, oh, I'm out of breath because I'm so overweight. I ran upstairs. Like thinking, you know what? This is still very rudimentary because he would have multiple strokes of color. So I have this on my website. I can find the date, but yeah, I loved Van Gogh right from the beginning. And I did this, like I said, very soon after I came back from, maybe there's a date on the back here. No. On my website, it'll have a date. And I'm pretty sure that was the second time I even ever touched acrylics. Okay. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. I have so many things I've been wanting to talk about that I keep inside because in the wrong context, things will come across not as they're intended, and people jump on you. And the thing is that my nature is I feel like I need to fight for true justice. Like I feel like I would intervene in scenarios typically. And I can tell you a really funny story recently where I kind of fucked up. But I'm not into something that's happening right now, which is a social justice kind of thrust. I think there's something deviant going on, which has to do with the deep state, possibly. At a propaganda level. I need to go in and spend time thinking before I can articulate that particular comment. But let me tell you an embarrassing story. I was at my local No Frills, which is like it's just a grocery store, and I had not many items, and there's that one, always that. There's always that one line in the grocery store where if you have like fewer items, you could go in, okay? And there was this young man who's maybe 35 or 40, and his mom was in a wheelchair in front of him, and I can't remember what happened, but like she kind of like butted in front of me. Right? And I was thinking, you know what? Just because you're in a wheelchair shouldn't mean you should have the right to get in front of me, and or something along those lines. And I said something, and the son came along all aggressively, and I was calm and said, look, you know, I was in line too. It's just not cool to butt in line, right? Or something like that. I can't remember. Oh, I know. She had more than the number of groceries that were allowed. What I didn't know is that there was also a sign for wheelchairs. So apparently, if you're in a wheelchair, you can go through the shortcut line, even though you had more items than normal, right? So it was my fault, totally. And he was getting up on my face, and I wasn't backing down. I was like, if you're a little old lady and you're doing something uncool, get in line like everybody else. And I've done that, to large and anybody, because I feel like just I'm sick of people who take advantage of the system because they can. So anyhow, he pointed out that if you're in a wheelchair, you asshole, you can go through. And I was like, oh man, I am so sorry. Here, please go ahead. By all means, I was wrong. I was totally wrong. I apologize. Blah, blah, blah. And after they were going through, I said, listen, I was wrong. Can I give you guys a lift? I'd be happy to drive you guys to wherever you need to go to. And, the guy was still pissed off at me, naturally. I think that was an example of I have to, be careful because, I thought I was doing the right thing because there's lots of other people waiting in line. And I thought that this person was, playing the old I'm in a wheelchair card. So therefore, I have special rights. But it turns out they did. They did have special rights, and I was wrong. I profusely. What did I do? I think I also offered to, let's say, help them bag their food. I think I even offered to help pay for the groceries, just because I felt like an ass. The guy didn't really accept my apology too quickly, or at all. But at least I owned up to it pretty quickly. So this is why I've kind of learned my lessons, that sometimes it's best just to shut the hell up, because you don't know the context. You don't know. People are too quick to judge, especially in public settings around hot political issues. People are too quick to judge. Like, the one big problem I have right now is calling people Nazis. Like, that's so wrong on so many levels. Like, because like, a lot of times they're not actually like Nazis, but you're painting them with this brush, which now prevents them from having any kind of defense. Only because of what you perceived. You could be wrong. Like, I was wrong. I was wrong about the woman in the wheelchair. And I was trying to do the right thing. And that's the thing, is I think a lot of people, they want to do the right thing, and I think here's the thing. I think for the most part, most people, and I'm talking like the 99% of us, don't live in a fancy world. We live in a world that sucks sometimes, right? We live in a world where other people get ahead. Psychopaths, people who, I could tell you so many stories in business. I've encountered a few psychopaths. I know a few psychopaths in business. And I can tell you that those are the ones who do get ahead in life. And so you have to be strong internally with yourself and realize like what's important in life. Otherwise, you just get torn up and bitter, and then you start reacting and doing. That's what I mean. You start reacting, and the reactions are worse sometimes. Like I have a plan. One of my ideas for a series of paintings I had a long time ago is to do a series of masks. One of which was the Nakib or the burqa. The burqa is one that covers everything except the eyes. And the Nakib covers everything, including the eyes. There's an eye veil. But I do a whole series of masks and try to make them kind of beautiful but symbolic. And one of them was like an Antifa kind of face. One of them, like different masks, because they mean different things. I haven't gotten around to it. It was also part of the idea of that things I learned on the internet. Because there's so much to be said about Antifa. There's so many like points and counterpoints and ideas that are spreading, because we do live in an age now where propaganda is a real thing, and we are the targets, you and I. And because of where I've grown up, and I know I would say I have relationships to some people who are in that elite group. And they're not bad people, but their bias helps create international policy. And there's one family friend, and I won't say who it is, but he's part of like one of the most important think tanks in the entire world. And I read his book, and he interviews world leaders, and I always thought he was a bit of a little too pompous for me to like personally. But I know some people like this, and I know how some of it operates. My goal is simply to be, I like George Carlin's philosophy. I think where he says he's a political atheist. He's like an observer, and he'll make comments about it. And I'm very much like that, where it's very, very hard for me to get drawn into a political side, because my nature is to say, wait a minute, let me first understand things. And so it takes me a long time before I can form an opinion about something. I definitely am the opposite of a knee-jerk reaction kind of person in general. It's like I have and I think wish people more likely they wouldn't suddenly jump to conclusions just because somebody else said something. And there's some crazy stuff happening in Ontario. Like there's this woman named Lindsay Shepherd who I don't know if you've been following her. There's all kinds of scenarios. There's things with this professor named Jordan Peterson, and there are so many people who have agenda is not the right word. It sounds too nefarious. I think it's more like they have a point of view, and they're entrenched in a point of view. So anything that contradicts their point of view, the opposing side is a bad person, is evil. And I think that's a dangerous thing. I think that's the wrong direction to go. I don't know if any of this is making sense. Okay. Tremblay. Oh, you said bonjour. It kind of makes me think of Starry Night. Well, yeah. So you're getting Starry Night because I for sure did swirls. Like, there's no question. I was thinking, hey, what's some beautiful stuff I can do? Well, I always loved me some Starry Night. So I've done Van Gogh swirls since I was a kid. But this painting was more like a thought experiment more than anything else. I mean, I remember telling good family friends saying, you know, modern art was partially a creation of the CIA. And they were like immediately dismissive. It was like, well, let me just sort of explain why. And then, you know, immediately you're a conspiracy theorist and you're dismissed. So here's an interesting thing about conspiracy theorist. The concept, the word, was created by the CIA propaganda wing to associate someone who has an idea with insanity, so you could be dismissed. It's so simple and brilliant. Right now, here's an example. Right now, I'm kind of investigating this flat world idea because I believe it is a disinformation campaign. I'm not saying who is doing it. It may be, you know, it could be part of our deep state, mostly U.S. deep states, typically, to create something, a ridiculous concept. The Earth is flat. Okay, so they put all kinds of information, and then anytime they want to dismiss somebody, they convince, manipulate, however you want to do it, the person they want to be, whose credibility you want to ruin. You have them associate somehow with the flat Earth theory, the idea that the Earth is flat. Right? It's such a ridiculous notion. No, I'm very, very open-minded. I'm willing to see if there's any kind of science, but I mean, you know, yeah, like, it'll take a hell of a lot of proof for something like that. But anyhow, I think that's a great example of the deep state at work today, is the flat Earth concept. It is created to create a straw man. A straw man argument is... So I think today, if you want to understand what's fake news and good news and whatnot, is you have to understand psychological neurolinguistics. You have to understand what like a straw man concept is. The idea is that you create an idea that is fake, okay? Then you destroy it because it's obviously fake, and then you associate what you said before was true. I think. No, sorry. You create a straw man that you imply someone else is saying is true. You destroy the straw man, right? It's gone because it was never real. And by doing that, you make the conclusion that you force a kind of conclusion that what the other person's other opinion was also false. And so I think that's a great example of you want to know what deep state is? That's a deep state. It's not something so mysterious. I mean, we've had since the Cold War, since the CIA was created, like it was in the 47, or it was just after World War II. It used to be the OSC or something, and the problem is it's just one of the things of power creates corruption and the checks and balances with secret organizations that you can't have oversight to. I mean, that's the only real danger. I don't have a problem with you know, CIA or NSA in general existing, as long as there's proper checks and balances, because it is too easy for it to go wrong, because typically people who get in those positions, maybe along the lines of lacking empathy, maybe purely psychotic, meaning they have no empathy, and that's where things go really wrong, such as the CIA, you know, with all the drug running. Like, it's almost like we accept it now as like some fact that the CIA, you know, was responsible for bringing drugs into the States and created the crack epidemic, you know, and you know, or like things like Operation Northwoods. Like, there's some crazy stuff that was going on. Did you know that there was a plan that came to at least the president's desk? I think it was Kennedy, where they wanted to do a false flag so that they could get into Cuba, and they were, one of the things on the table was to have American citizens be killed, to take a jet plane and crash it, and the plane was supposed to be empty, but they would still be American casualties, like citizens, and that's some crazy, horrible, evil shit right there. And then how do you prevent that when you're in this organization that has a culture of any means necessary? Oh, there's another very good thing, I would say. I remember being in grade school, and by any means necessary, or the ends justify the means, was a topic of debate. And even to this day, it's still stuck with me. This was a debate with Mr. Thompson at Upper Canada College. I still remember it. And I think it was grade 7 or grade 8. And as the end justifies the means. What a brilliant thing to talk about with a young mind. I really didn't get it, unfortunately, until years later. I think I was on the pro side. The end justifies the means. So I was coming up with all kinds of course it's, you know, if, you know, are you willing to like kill somebody to save 1,000 people or something? There are complex and difficult scenarios where the ends, you could justify it in your mind, but I think at a philosophical level, that's where the world goes wrong. The world goes wrong when we adopt an attitude, the end justifies the means. It usually comes from severe frustration with the world, because the world is so unfair. The world is so populated, you know, so much in control by the financial system. You know, we've got this a financial system that is truly what controls the world. I mean, it's not like trying to be conspiratorial about it. Literally, the creation of money is everything, and most of our wars are about have that as a pretense, as an underlying cause is who gets to control the world, and petrodollar, and you know, that plays an important part. So it kind of comes down to who you are and what side are you on. How far are you willing to go? For me, I've learned that as much as to my dismay, I'm an observer. You know, I'm not going to be one. I'm not Jack Ryan. I'm not going to be out there doing action, saving the world like some sort of superhero. My role is just to sort of interpret what I see and be like a record keeper a little bit, and to have an influence of just, I'll tell you one of my most important personal influences. I was close to my grandmother. She was a pretty cool woman. Lots of stories about her. And of course, anyone who has any kind of like thinking brain would or any kind of wisdom should make their best efforts to tap into older people's experiences about life. And so I asked her, what is the meaning of life? How should you live? And her answer was, be good to the people around you. There's a second part to that and it was unspoken, but it was known, and I saw it through family, friends. The greater your influence of people means that you can do greater good. And this, it's all like we are all networked concentric circles of influence, right? And so one of my goals in my life was to become as influential as I could through art would be my dream, and to be good to people. And I'll tell you, so we've got a couple good family friends who are very influential, and they do so much good. It's true. I don't want to say some of their names, but some of our very good family friends are like literal world leaders. Literally have changed the lives of thousands and thousands of people through philanthropy and through creative ideas. Man, I really want to say who some of them are, but I won't, just because out of respect. But that's my dream, where I could become a successful artist and I have some influence and fighting for some sort of cosmic good, even though I don't believe, in that spiritual realm necessarily. It might just be a matter of numbers. But I'm not going to be, So right now, here I am today, is I'm combating, I'm exposing our training, our brainwash that modern art has value. I think that I would like to go back to I would like to be a part of a new renaissance of art. And it may not be a stylistic renaissance, but imagine a renaissance, and I mean renaissance in a true sense, where we are re-remembering what's beautiful about us, what's good about us, because that's the only way we can win. I mean, the average person. We can't beat the banking system. We can't beat the military-industrial complex, the pharmaceutical complex. We can't beat it. But maybe at an individual level, to each other, we can choose to be better. And I'm not sure how that works. Maybe it's a matter of not choosing to buy certain products, right? And these are difficult things. Like, for example, the BDS movement. Wow, the Middle East, that's like one of the toughest areas. And it touches me at home because I grew up Jewish, but I never felt necessarily Jewish because my mom converted. She was like some Swedish blonde, like practically aristocrat, gorgeous Dutch, Swedish, English, and that's half my blood. And so I never felt affinity to any group. Also look at the way I look. I don't look Jewish at all. I got red hair, I'm about as pasty white as it gets. I do have a bit of my dad's nose. He's got a big Jewish nose. My dad, holy smacks, looks super Jewish. He's got the olive skin. He's got the giant nose. I love that guy. But the things that happened in Israel, like that Israel was created. It was given, by the British, and when it wasn't theirs to give, when it was given by like an ultra, it was by a letter from someone who was in England. I have sympathy for the Palestinian plight, but I also have sympathy for Jewish people who just want to live. You know what I mean? And I'm also, I have, because I've got family and friends who are Jewish, you know, uh, I can't talk to them about anything because there's a knee-jerk reaction, and these are people that I love deeply, who are much closer to the experience of the Holocaust. I'm talking about some people who are much older, and so you can't even bring it up with them. It's such a traumatic experience for them that I've just resolved that I can never have conversations with some of these people because they can't handle I'm open-minded. Like, I'm willing to hear all sides, you know what I mean? And maybe one day I'll try to, like, you know, I thought about doing paintings about that. But you know what happens? You know what's going to happen is, you remember, there's a horrible, horrible image of, there was a horrible, this video gets me every time. It'll make me cry if I think about it too much. Just give me a second. Okay. There was a father and son. They were, I think, Palestinians, I'm not sure. And they were cornered against a wall. And I think they were being shot at by the Israeli army. I think. And the Israeli, I believe it was Israeli, anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but they killed the man and the son. Oh, that was just fucking heartbreaking. And so, it's heartbreaking. It's mostly heartbreaking because you know that a lot of people who are in charge don't care. They don't care. It doesn't affect them that way. And I literally know 2 psychopaths, very, very successful here. Super intelligent. And there's a reason why they become super successful, because they had just literally... Yeah. And by the way, a psychopath does not necessarily mean a murderer. I think people should understand that. It just means they lack empathy. You know, they don't have the same, they lack compassion, they lack understanding. Oh, okay. Oh, another big topic that I think about a lot is immigration. You know, and living in Ontario, multiculturalism. I think about it a lot. And things I don't have the answers, you know. And so when I'm doing some of these paintings that are going to be related to it, it's my intention with the painting is to try to work it out with myself. At the same time, I might imply one or two different directions, but it's really up to the person observing it that's going to create the distinction. And I like listening to how people respond to it. Like their biases come screaming through when they make comments about it. And I think, to me, that's kind of exciting because, like I said, I'm a loner. I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to rock anybody's boats. But I also very intensely believe the truth is the ultimate thing. So I guess what I'm trying to do subtly with some of those works, even like this, is how can I come close to truth, whatever that is. Try to provoke truth. Oops. There's no end to this painting. I think that's part of what is attracting me to it. There's no end to this. I want someone to, if someone ever comes here and they look at it, maybe they'll realize that someone who was thinking not just creating a photograph of another landscape or another person drinking coffee or another person doing, whatever it is that they took a photograph of, that there was actually meaning and intent here, and I dare say some skill, because I'm trying to always grow and become better and master as much as I can. Every little thing I do here, I'm learning about, like this. There's some cool stuff that happened here. This thing has been dry, and because of the thickness of it, oops, sorry, there's like this cracking going on, which is really neat. Like, I'm not even sure how that happened. Oh, I know why, because I had painted white before. The CIA was white, and now I painted over it, and it's cracking, and the white is showing through, so that's kind of neat. I'm going to leave it there. It feels kind of cool. It adds some personality to this thing. It's also kind of strange, like, I have to question, like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, what I'm doing here, there is a good chance no one will ever pay a penny for this thing. But here I am, doing my 100% best to create something. I feel like sometimes I like, I think part of it is I don't like the selling process so much that I just avoid it. And it's more like, this is what I need to do. I love doing the beautiful landscapes. Don't get me wrong. Birches of the Orange, very enjoyable to do. But there's a dark side of me that needs to explore the dark side of life. And I usually, I think, like, for example, yesterday I posted this very personal sketch I did about me being an introvert. And I've got tons of that. I remember there's one guy named Bo who came on and was like throwing all kinds of insults at me because all I was doing was like pretty stuff. And I'm like, dude, you have no idea. You have no clue. I am not unidimensional. I'm not just one person who does just one type of like pretty little pictures and that's it. I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of explored ideas and styles. I just haven't been narcissistic and showed everybody, and that's to my own detriment. So it was almost like to him, it's like, be careful how you judge. Careful who you judge. Because you don't know. You don't know. Okay. Just 1 second. I have to text my buddy who's at Costco buying me stuff. 1 second. Milk, cream, eggs. I think that's it. A new Costco opened up not too far from me. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I don't want people to know me. That's too late. Okay. Where's the camera? Oh, you're up here, are you? Okay, can you even see this? Let's look for some stuff. Maybe I should switch brushes too. I just feel like creating this maze of patterns, this place you get stuck in, this quagmire of shapes, and in the hopes that it justifies and makes the overall painting worth looking at and having some importance, is what I'm trying to get at. I just looked at I look at some other people's paintings and literally they're just splashing some shit around, and I would love to do that. I would love if I could get away with that. It's fun. It's literally fun, 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 fun. And if people will pay for it, that's great, 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 great. But part of me feels like you are just like everybody else then. Like you're not a true creator. I guess that's what it is I am happy when I'm creating. So for many, many years, I made video games. And I built a few video game companies. And one thing I learned was I was happy because I'm creating a company, and creating video games is very creative. Like even like negotiating like video game contracts, and there's a lot of creative thinking about how to do it, and making game themselves. There's tons of technical problems and the creative problems, and I've come away with a lot of knowledge about video games, running video game studios, video game production. That's sort of like my professional area of expertise. Is I've made so many different types of video games, small and large, for 25 years, that I never felt I missed out on not showing my artwork during that time, because I felt like it was very creative to. I mean, I built a company from nothing, like literally nothing. It started with me doing consulting to save some cash to work on a project that I created, slowly hiring people, and then negotiating a publishing contract, and then working slowly to build up credibility with publishers, and then like it's a different world now in many ways. Like I was what it was probably the last of the generation that could have gotten a larger project from publishers, because back then you could have done a AAA game with about 25 to 30 people. Now a AAA game is more like 300 to 400 people. Back then a budget of $1 million could have get you a AAA. Now you need 30, 40, 50, $100 million to do a AAA game. So, but the difference is now because of the internet, you can be independent, and you can forget about a publisher and just go directly online. So there's huge potential for all kinds of different video games now. And I have no idea what I'm talking about. Oh yeah, I'm talking about the fact that creativity, I never felt I missed out too much, because what I was doing was always so creative. Like building prototypes with other people is a hell of a lot of fun. I've made zombie games, I've made space games, I've made military games, I made goofy kind of like sim collecting games, I made casino games, which was never my intention. That's actually how I started out. But all kinds of play for fun games, and I watched other people make games, and I basically managed a lot of other teams that made games too, so I was more like the executive producer, and I would help manage the overall project. And that was cool too. Like I was actually really good at managing large teams and managing large projects and managing people. Like I thrived at it. I thrived at the intensity. And I was also really good at foresight, at seeing where problems were going to be and fixing them before they became a problem. And that was, I think, why I did pretty well in my career, is because I would think everything was like a chess game. Right? I would try thinking ahead. If I do this, here's how they're going to respond. Here's what happens next. Okay, who's calling? Who's texting me? Okay, all right. So right now, I'm just trying to draw on whatever colors are on my palette right now. I have to move this one second. Look at this madness. It's almost like hell. It's almost like it's somewhere between something pretty and something demonic. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm putting a lot of care into where each little stroke goes and what kind of marks it creates. And I'm fixing up ones that I kind of knew at some point in my life I was going to come back to later and fix. Like down here, this stuff is wrong. It's a little bouquet of something. I just don't like the way it ends. It looks like a bear claw. So I'm gonna change this a bit. So I'm not sure how I'm gonna fix it. I think I need to tone down those yellows. Yeah, those pinks were just not right. Yeah, I'm gonna try a little bit of this Chagall-ish. Oh no, Odilon Rodin. This is what he does. I don't know if you can see this. He does some cool magic stuff that I don't think he's recognized enough. Oh. Let me put this down. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay. Odilon Rodin. Okay. I probably haven't looked at an Odilon Rodin painting in years. I can't remember the last time. He would do this. He would take a brush and then swirl it down here, and then take a lighter color and swirl it down until he created these like little sparkly, like, I have to put some paint on my brush. Kind of like these little rows that resolved into something that looked mystical. And so that's what I'm going to do right here, is add a little bit of that mystical kind of Odilon Rodin stuff. That's what I like, is I've internalized, after doing this for so long, I think I pick it up pretty quickly. I only need to look at something for a short time, and I kind of see it in my mind's eye again. Like for sure for Van Gogh, I could reproduce his lines and his strokes just at will. And so I just let my hand do the walking now. Yeah. Don't like these little yellow things, so I'm just going to circle around here. This is one of the few paintings where there's actually black. And it's black because it was meant to be like the CIA is a little nefarious, to be honest, right? It is hard to know who at any given time they're working for, because a lot of it has to do with retaining their own power. How far they're willing to go to protect themselves. You know, maybe some of their clandestine operations didn't go well, and they're clearly breaking the law, but it helped them survive further. Like, you know, for example, the being a cocaine shipment courier system, like, you know, being involved in the drug trade. You know, at first maybe it was to help, you know, break, you know, attack terrorists, whatever. But maybe what happened is some of the agents realized that they could get rich off of it, or they could fund operations that were off the books. You know, like, so. I mean, this sounds like some sort of spy novel, but this is the way the world works. So that's why there's some black in this. There's meant to be some darkness in here. There's meant to be some black holes that go into nothing, right? That you're sucked in. Let's see if I can swirl it around with a little bit more roll down there. And I don't even know at what point this thing is finished, because I want this thing to be about madness, right? About the insanity, the absolute insanity of us being convinced that a bunch of swirls on paint arbitrarily thrown on. And I see it today where I think there's a guy in Toronto, and literally, so embarrassing for me as an artist. You know, he gets some, has this thing that's a wheel that's turning, and he pours the paint on, and the wheel spreads it all around, and that's his painting. And I have two minds about it. The one that's the most dominant is, go for it, dude. Go for it. Who the hell am I to say that's not art? Because there is no definition of art. Who am I to say that has no value? You know, and I don't want to stop anyone's creativity. I want them, you know, keep on going, man. Maybe this evolves to something else. Like, who knows? You're having fun, you're experimenting, and people are liking it. That's good. The other part of me, which is the part of me that's more like, you know, where I feel strongly that you need to show intentionality. You need to show intent. You need to prove yourself to get my attention. You know, You need to do something that's has merit. I think that's what I'm trying to get down to. It has merit. It has nothing to do with who you are. It's this thing by itself. Does it speak to me? And so that kind of stuff does not speak to me. It says the opposite. It says I'm lazy as fuck, and I'm a hack, and what other probably very negative things. This is why I try not to articulate it. I would never say it to that person unless they actually really wanted me to give them an opinion. And if I felt that they were the kind of person like me that absolutely can take any kind of negative criticism, like would get offended, I would use that kind of vocabulary. But if not, my default position is to be more diplomatic and to say that it's just not for me. I the things that I appreciate more are blah 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 blah. So, but there's a part of me that's jealous. To be honest, to be fair, because I look at it and there's 7.4 million views of this process of this person doing it, and it's kind of like, oh well, fuck, do I? Okay, how would I even feel about getting 7 million views? I would hope that I'm doing something that has value, but I think it doesn't matter. I think that's actually maybe not even a good thing. Because what you're doing is you're being entertaining. You're satisfying, the impatient, quick click generation we live in, And I guess that's not what I'm trying to do. I think it would be nice to be able to reach more people, organically. I don't like paying Facebook just so that you guys can see this stuff. I literally have to pay Facebook just for you to show up in your feed. They only promote about 10%. When I do a post, they only promote 10% to the people. Let's say there's 6,500 people following me. They only show it to a couple hundred people. So for you guys to see the stuff I'm working on, I have to pay Facebook. And it really sucks because I'm doing this for free. I'm just happy to show people, but damn, they really have a good lock-on business model for artists, and it pushes people to do. It's kind of like, I guess, selling out is the lack is not the best term I can think of, but for creating stuff that's going to get attention. So it may not be good content, but it'll get eyeballs. And I think that's the danger. I think if you're going to be an artist and you're going to be true to yourself, why are you doing it? Are you doing it to get attention, to get 7 million views of you swirling some paint on a board and I just can't do it. For me, it's like a God. It's you're feeding the system. You're feeding the monster. Don't feed the monster. Okay, some of those are nice, actually nice, kind of beautiful here. So I like what I'm seeing in that I'm getting a sense of prettiness down here. There's some beautiful little things coming down here. Sorry, one second. I'll show you what I'm talking about. There's some actual prettiness coming down here. It's almost like these flowers that I've always kind of done. Look at, even the colors are kind of nice. Even though I'm on this crappy camera, I'll take it outside and take pictures of it. But still, it is kind of pretty. Look at the patterns. But I've left in this darkness, this sort of decay. Where's the decay? See the red, see the black, and see that it's like there's something like a virus about it. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at, is that it's a virus. It's a political trick. or it's a manipulative social trick. What is modern art? I don't think I'm going to do another painting like this, so this will be a one-off. It's going to take me a little bit longer to finish because I still feel I want to have my little art marks to make it so that at least I'm satisfied I did my best. So I'm going in close and I'm making my little things happen. Maybe I'll add a bit of... Whew. I'm not at an hour yet. I know when I'm at an hour. So, oh my god. Oh shit. It's an hour and 23 minutes. Yikes. I am wrong. I was totally off. One thing I did make a mistake is I forgot to start recording. Actually, this is a nice color. I forgot to start recording the high HD version, so probably have to break it up into 2 parts. I don't know if anything I just said makes sense to people. I think maybe, yeah, it's kind of nice. Got a little bit down here. Yeah, even the corners, even the, I have a tendency to, like a vignette effect, leave the corners rougher and the details are focused in the middle. So I sometimes have to remind myself to get in there. Don't forget about this little cute little spots down here. Like that. There we go. Well, here's what we should do. Let's hold out until this painting is worth $100,000. How's that? Let's do that, okay? Let's keep it until its perceived value is 100,000. In other words, I'm going to be holding on to it forever. I just have to keep working, keep trying to master my craft. Maybe what I'm going to do here is just start pulling stuff, making it, yeah, because when it's in the words of the CIA, it's meant to be decaying. It's meant to be corruption. And what I don't mean in the sense of like it's like corruption as in graft corruption. I mean corruption as decay corruption, as in decaying the truth. You know, it poisoned our minds. Or more likely, we let this happen to ourselves. We let ourselves become told by others what has value. I challenge you to go and read articles about modern art. See if what they're saying rings true in your heart. Okay? I don't mean that. I don't mean that in a goofy way. I mean like rings true with your sense of tuition, with your sense of like truth. Is modern art really intrinsically, actually, you know, maybe the truth of modern art is it's not trying to be beautiful. Maybe it's still trying to find truth. I just kind of feel it is still kind of corrupted. It doesn't convince me. Oh, I think there is kind of value in being the first at doing it, I guess. I think. So like in Mark Rothko, yeah, he gets props for being the first to have the guts to do these giant paintings, because it kind of does have guts, because I think before that time people might have just ridiculed you for like doing large pieces of just 3 colors, you know. I know there's little variations of color in between and all that kind of stuff, but so maybe that, you know, maybe there is that value. Maybe that's the redeeming value in nature of like Mark Rothko's. I think a lot of it has to do with like the fact it's a very marketable thing. It's a very easily, quickly identifiable. You can always identify Mark Rothko because he's the one who's been known for doing the giant sort of areas of color with some, so, you know, there's a variation with it, I get. And so collectors want that. I think there's some ego on the collector's side. I think maybe there's part of the fault, not fault, but part of the success, I should say, is because human nature wants to have something original. They want to, you know, there's an ego involved that says, yes, look at what I have in my lodge or on my yacht. I have an original Mark Rothko. Oh, it's nothing. It's nothing. It's just my southern wall. Maybe there's something along those lines. But for me, growing up, I think I felt very discouraged because I felt like so many of the things that I thought were art were already done. You know, I felt discouraged. So I just didn't show anybody. I just kept on doing my own little stuff in quiet, and I just had my own paintings and sketchbooks. And I might show a girlfriend, or if I had a roommate with me, you know, they would kind of have a look. And but for the most part, I didn't show anybody this stuff. I just felt like, you know, what's the point? You know, I felt like too many people were narcissistic. You know, they wanted to me, look at me, and I'm really not a fan of that. Lots of blabbing in this session, eh? Well, I am liking a lot of these things that are happening here up close. Kind of makes me want to go to Kramer's Heart, or if that's what I'm going to call it. I should show you to you because it has very similar. I actually have a couple more. I've got 3 Stars, which is like a rip-off in a way of Starry Night, but meant to be like a child's version of it because the stars are huge. And the other thing I did about it was I had really ridiculous thick paint, like coming off like a ½ inch. And it was just fun to do. And I didn't, you know. Okay. Does anybody even listen to me? Oh, Cindy, it does. Mud art never appealed to me. Like you said, throwing a paint on a canvas. They even had monkeys doing it. Yep. Oh, dude, you know, there was some guy who was like painting with his penis. You know, it's just shock value. It's like, I think there's a need in art to bring back masterful paintings that aren't necessarily reproducing what another master was doing. So for example, there's this guy on Instagram I follow. I think he's Mexican, and he's been reproducing some really beautiful, like highly fine detailed cloth simulations, and it's kind of like a old Italian art. And it was, some of it's cool, but it wasn't. It was just copying. It was still, I don't know. I just hope to God that I can find something that's still original, you know? I hope to God that I can do something that creates something new. I don't know. But I'm going to keep on trying. I'm going to keep on doing what I love, which is finding beautiful marks in here. Oh, and the other thing I'm going to do is I very much like the power of symbology, a power of symbols. And so I've been wanting to do that for quite some time. is explore symbols, mystical symbols, heretical symbols, allegorical symbols. Also, like agnostic, mystical, Jewish, Kabbalah. Like, there's a whole range of symbols that some people believe have powers. You know, I want to explore that. I wonder if I can make art out of it, because I think there is something powerful about the symbols in that they are, and I've done this before. Actually, I have this little watercolor gouache one where I have me floating around and there's like a triangle, you know, like the Illuminati triangle, like grabbing the pyramid stuff. And I did that like in 1992 or something. So like, I really think there's stuff still to tap into. Yeah, that would be my dream, if I could make something that is still original, that people could see that it was masterfully done. I'd like to do it while I'm still alive, thank you very much. And to yeah, that would be part of my dream come true, is to just to be like a modern master, I guess is the best way to describe it. So I'm just going to keep plugging away, trying to figure out. Well, I guess you can't see what the hell I'm doing. I'm sorry. The whole time I was self-absorbed in all these cool little shapes and things and stuff and weirdness. You know, like maybe I'd like to do my own version. This kind of reminds me of like more Hieronymus Bosch than anything else, and I mean in concept. I don't mean in style in any way. You know, especially the triptych with the or is it a diptych? Where it's got all the weird ass creatures in hell and stuff. This is kind of my own colorized version of that. Excuse me. Let's put some crazy tiny little dots that only you and me will know weren't done by, like, you know, some people could like get a sponge and they could pop it there and then all of a sudden there's 100 dots. Like, I've literally placed every dot, every little thing here manually, so that, let's go back in here and squish it up a little bit. Every little tiny speck has its home. Seems like mental illness, don't you think? And I don't think I have mental illness, so no worries there. You know, one of the reasons why I did that thing last night, where I put that thing out about me being an introvert, is I can't remember, I think it was David Bowie who said, or I even heard it recently and I agree, is that, it was Jordan Peterson. It was about, he was talking about gymnastics and why we are so interested in people who push themselves towards the edge of chaos, because that's where we find our greatest potential. So the reason why I put myself out there, even though I fucking hate it, I hate revealing stuff about myself, I did it because I had to push myself. I had to do it, or I wouldn't be being true. I won't be able to reach my potential. I had to expose myself. I had to like expose my soft underbelly that anyone could come along and stab. You know what I mean? I'm doing this on the internet, which is insane. But I feel like I have to do this. I have to go all out. I think the thing about David Bowie, I think he said something like, "If you're comfortable, you're not pushing yourself too far. You're not reaching your potential," or something along those lines. So just for you sadists out there, I am very, very uncomfortable doing this, even talking. There's some very nice people who listen. Like I know Cindy, and like and Cheryl. You know, you guys are very supportive, even though I don't know who you are. But there probably are some fucking psychos out there. And that worries me. You know? And I just don't like people knowing about me. I like being like, I could easily have just let my life and no one would ever know about me and I'd just comfortably just disappear. But something had to have happened to me to change everything. So I hope I can. I hope I can become the greatest artist I can be, and I think it involves me pushing myself where I'm most uncomfortable, which literally is what I'm doing right now. Look, I'm crying. Jeez. But the thing is, I'm not a coward in any way. Like I'm not like a. I've been around too many people who are narcissistic and get the attention. They don't deserve it just because they're loud. And I always never respected that. I always never wanted to be like one of those people that shouts the loudest to get the most attention. Because that's kind of how I grew up. I grew up in a place where if you didn't shout, you didn't get the attention. If you didn't like say, "Look at what I've done," and I always respected the humble people who didn't. I feel like puking. Oh, who didn't do that? Wow, I really feel like puking. All right. Oh, I just feel like a wave of tiredness came over me. I feel awful right now. Maybe that's just part of life, man. I seriously, I definitely am affected by the neurochemistry that flows through me. Like I get, like right now, I'm aware of a feeling I have that's affecting my it's affecting all parts of me right now, which is, you know, first I'm nauseous, then I'm tired, and I think it's because of my limbic system was being kicked in because I started to feel very deep emotions, and right now I do. So it's like you just have to. I'm separating myself and sort of watching it happen. Ooh. So that's why I don't do drugs. I don't even drink. I don't need it. I got enough shit to deal with. Oh, wow. Holy, talk about exposing yourself. but this feels good. Oops, sorry. Up here. The old fucker CIA. I went to, I was, you know, I think I told you before, I'm very technical. I've always been very much into programming and software and stuff, and I was interested in, I don't know if I should talk about it. Never mind. No, I'm not going to talk about it. Okay, step back. Okay, it's become much more swirly. This is interesting. It's more pretty. That's not bad. I could literally stop right here. Is there anything I might want to... Yeah, a couple Rodin. I need a bit more softness. Excuse me. It needs a bit more, less all dots and a little bit more like movement of lines. So even though, remember I went in here and I did these tiny little fucking things, look, they're gone now. So that, all those little tiny, just ruined it. I just didn't, it was bugging me. Maybe I'll do a couple, look at this. Maybe those only exist up here. Oh, this is beautiful. Some of these are really nice little things. Yeah, I like this. I like that. All right, you black devil, you CIA. Get your shit together, guys. We need you to be the protectors, man. We need, if we're gonna give you this power, don't abuse it, or you'll lose it. And also, Canadian security establishment, thankfully, tends to be more on the respecting side of citizenship to some degree. Most people don't even know about the Canadian security establishment. Everyone knows about CSIS, but they don't know about Canadian security establishment, which is much bigger than CSIS. You know, we actually have a pretty elaborate security establishment system. I just think they're quieter about it, which is probably the right way to be. And also, I have some inclination that there are a lot more, maybe because they're less influential, they may tend to be the good guys, let's just say. Now, we have, thankfully, some clear checks and balances on our intelligence services that if you were so inclined, you could learn about. Okay. So my hats off to the CSE in general. Okay. All right. I think maybe not finished, but I feel really good that I talked about something I've been in my mind for quite a few years. So let me just quickly zoom in, and I'll do a summary video where I zoom in outside where it's better light. But you can sort of see some of the work I put into here. I'm gonna actually do another pass later with even more stuff, but that is the birth of modern art, CIA. All right, thanks for watching.